Hello and welcome to Warblog. Today I'm going to, just play the Battle of Tal Afar. This is an interesting one from the point of view that there's a huge bag of these sort of engagements from the, I'm not even sure what the correct period is, but basically from the sort of the original Iraq war with the Western coalition. I mean, in this one, essentially the situation is that the Iraqi forces with the US forces are basically taking Tal Afar, which is essentially full of Al-Qaeda in Iraq units. So it's interesting because there's not a lot of coverage from the Middle East, but it's sort of one of the first where there's been a lot of these US units. I'm not sure why that is. I just think that was such a more complex and involved scenario. But there's absolutely loads. I mean, there's three in total. There's the Kuwait, liberation of Kuwait, and the first invasion of Iraq, and then obviously the second one. I'm not sure whether there was a first one or whether Operation Shield and things like that. But anyway, I'm just going to play this now. The thing that I'm sort of half aware of is that I only want to do a 15-minute blast. So I'm just going to sort of run through what I think the main strategy is. Now I've split them up into four groups. There's no indication of how they approached Tal Afar or what the sort of deployment was. But essentially the battle was over after about 2 or 3 days. There was initial quite tense fighting on the first day. And to sort of reflect that, I've split the objective over 3 places, and there are, if you sort of compare this to say a number of the other maps, where there are absolutely tons of, counters covering every part of it. Here there aren't that many, and so you've got the 4 groups. Essentially, you've got a certain number from the 3rd Iraqi division, so you've got the 11th motorised down there. There's the 10th motorised, there's the 6th motorised, and over here we've got the 9th motorised. These ones are the Desert Lions, so they've sort of got a little bit of an extra accolade on their title. These ones down here are sort of interesting because they're all the way down here. I just sort of plonked them down there. Maybe it's a bit mean, but in theory, it should only take them 3 turns to be, effective here. So it's not a million miles away. I think obviously it's trundling up the roads, but the other thing to bear in mind is that the US have Apache helicopters. They're not too strong, but they should help. But they also have these air mobile units. Now, the thing is, I think the question is, where do you want to put those? And now I'm thinking that would be quite a key point, because from there you'd be outside of immediate zones of control. You would take a little bit of anti-aircraft, wherever the anti-aircraft is, and from ground units. But that might be quite a safe place, or maybe up here somewhere, maybe there where you can get into the city. But then to sort of maybe get into the city. Now what I was thinking was splitting them up into 2 forces, taking these 2 places maybe, and then these 2. I mean, no particular order, maybe these 2 and then these 2, or maybe taking, a heavy concentration around the centre. But basically using the air mobile units to immediately divide the city, because there's lots of open spaces, and that's, I think I just sort of suggested, but I'll reiterate, I've left it sort of quite sparse, so that they don't have that sort of immaculate defence of having enough units to cover the whole place. So in theory, it should be quite a quick battle, and I haven't really calculated it, but I think the odds are actually, pretty heavy in sort of the Allies' favour. I mean, even the Iraqis have got pretty tough units. When you actually start looking at them, it should be a case of, a walkover. But I think it was anyway. But they're not free walkovers. There's still blood being shed. I think the US lost 6. Killed in action, 52 wounded. The Iraqis 15 killed in action, 36 wounded. And the Al-Qaeda units had 163 killed in action, and nearly 700 captured, 295 injured, and well, it's either 162 to 295 killed or 163 killed, 295 wounded, and nearly 700 captured. So it's quite extensive. I mean, there's no real rules for replicating capture or surrender of units, but you can sort of maybe, assume that depending on how you play it. So essentially, there's sort of, the prime strategies of how you approach these units will probably take a little bit of time. So you might want to sit there whilst these advance. But the thing that I think is quite key from what I've been thinking about is that if you look at this artillery, he's got 6 range, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So in theory, now the range is a bit sort of skew with in the game. Sometimes when you're in extreme range, it will or it won't get it because of the way hexes calculate. I mean, it's integral with the game. It's a bit inaccurate. But the thing is, he's only got 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So he basically we're out of artillery range, and the same over here. I mean, he's got artillery, he's got rockets there, 1, 2, 3, 4, so he can get to those, but he can't get the units. But in here, there's artillery, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I think the thing to do, and down here I think there's some more artillery there. The thing to do is to move the artillery within 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now it might take maybe 2 turns to get to that position. But I think that's what I'm going to do as a preliminary. Because he's got quite a lot. Now, the thing is, he's got 7 movement. That's because I'm making the assumption that they're sort of, I don't know, they're what's it called? Tracked artillery. That's not the correct term, but basically they're mobile. So he's still got quite a lot of movement left. So I only really want to be getting to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I only want to be getting there. Now let's test out whether I can hit this target, and I can. So, but the other one is from the other position. So basically, what I'm suggesting here is that I'm going to create a front line, and I'm not going to advance other than moving these units forward. So I can take it. I want to take out this rocket and this rocket position, and then when I've decided on how the situation is playing, I'm going to then use my immobile units to sort of make a decision and to cut something off. I think that's the way to do it. So that sort of, to some extent, forces the Al-Qaeda player to actually maintain some kind of distribution in the city. Because if he moves everything over to sort of, a central defensive position, it will leave other elements more vulnerable to my air mobile operation. So I'm. And it's one of these things that I do like playing like this, because essentially it's not sort of doing everything straight away. It's toying and playing and almost sort of trying to provoke the opponent into doing something, and it's something that you don't get when you play on your own, and it's something that artificial intelligence can't do. I've talked. I had a sort of brief encounter with someone about artificial intelligence, and they're saying, well, if the artificial intelligence can guess what you're going to do 9 times out of 10, then it's pretty good. Well, no, because one thing that artificial intelligence doesn't do is nothing at all. I mean, okay, maybe you could program that in, but the human factor is quite significant in that. If I just don't do anything, what would the Al-Qaeda person do? Would they not do anything? But they've got already automatically the option to readjust their positions, because I've got to actually make that ground up. But even so, I can sort of sit there and 1, 2, 3, 4. So I can get to there. So I can sort of sit there doing nothing and preparing and manoeuvring. And I think that's something that a lot of war games miss out. There's no manoeuvring going on, and I don't know what I'm going to do with those. Okay, I want to see how far these can move. Is that it? Movement 0, so you can get 1, 2, 3, 4. next turn, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3 turns. So there's going to be 4 turns to get there. But it does mean I can have fun with a broader approach. So that's the 11th Motorised Brigade of the 3rd Iraqi Division moving forward. And I don't think I really want to sort of adjust this as a defensive position. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. But I will move these guys just a little bit further forward, and I will move these guys forward to sort of protect the artillery. Now what I'm going to do is go for the artillery, go for their rockets, and do it in 2 stages because it seems a little more effective. That's a gaming mechanic. So 1.4, so that's good. I'm also going to go in with the next lot of artillery. 0.9, so basically his artillery now is down 2.2 to 2.3, and again, it's one of these sort of things that in games you sort of think, well, why don't they just sit there with, blowing them up? Now it's interesting because I have deliberately adjusted the artillery ranges, but it wasn't sort of consciously to develop this strategy. But I looked at it and I thought, hang on, that actually, that I can play with that, sort of to my favour to some extent. And there are some games, in particular the Angola ones, which I still haven't developed, and they had superior range, and so that allowed them to do quite a lot of things that they could fire at the enemy, and the enemy couldn't hit them back because they didn't have the same sort of range. So here we're using that, and to some extent it's sort of like, well, it's unfair because I can just sit there now and blow them up, and of course that's how you win the wars to some extent. I mean, even from medieval times, artillery, catapults and all that sort of stuff has been pretty useful and pretty important in siege situations and prepping sort of enemy positions up. So that's sort of what I'm doing here. Now the thing is, the rockets could pop out and maybe do something, but really he's going to have to either sit there and hold or retreat from that position. And so I don't know what the Al-Qaeda player is going to do because obviously it's me, so I haven't got that far in my thinking yet. So he's got 0.6 damage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in some of my, I don't really want to do this, but I'm going to bring my attack helicopters on this. No effect. I'm going to do it again because I want to get the artillery to over 1, because otherwise it will recover. And so I haven't really, all my work on that artillery position is for nothing because he will recover at that 1 point, because A, he can't attack anything. Because there's nothing in range, 1, 2, 3, 4. He can't attack anything, so he will recover. But this one won't. I mean, he's at 2.3, so he'll go down to 1.3. So it's a slow attrition. But I think that that's the strategy that I'm going to use. So I'll end that turn. I'm not going to deploy my air units because I want to sort of see what happens and then respond. But as I say, I'm not going to go beyond 15 minutes, so it's only really an intro into sort of the strategy I'm taking. Now the Al-Qaeda units, I mean, to be quite honest, I haven't even thought about what they can do, but they've got 2 infantry companies in there. Now they've got their anti-tank and their air defence units, and so the thing to do may be, see, I want to recover him, but do I want to leave him exposed? To be quite honest, I think I'm going to cut my losses. I'm going to move these things back, because if you look at the map, that's a fort. They're all fortifications, so that, although they haven't recovered now, they'll be a little better defended, and maybe they can recover later, because we're not going to make the range up. There's only 40 seconds left, so I really don't know what more to do. But I was gonna sort of half suggest that I might move my regular units out a bit to try and attack this artillery, or to put some pressure on them, because that's what regulars do. They're quite good at engaging and falling back because they don't get damaged, they retreat. And so I think if I was to do this for another turn, and I didn't have just 10 seconds left, I think I might pull some of these irregulars out and start harassing their front lines. But we'll see. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, I'm going to go for another round, just because I want to see what the irregulars can do. Now, it sort of looks a little suicidal, but that sort of puts a lot of zones of control in there, and it pressures these people. I'm just sort of experimenting really with this. And I'm also going to move these units. And they're going a lot slower down there. And again, I'm going to use these units to harass these, and now I'm using these almost experimentally, but I'm not considering them to be. But I think there's a relation to the concept of skirmishers in earlier sort of American Civil War, Napoleonic type periods when they would just use skirmishers. And I'm not sure whether this would be true. I mean, this isn't flat terrain. The desert doesn't mean it's desert. It means that it's sort of very arid. So these could be lots of sort of gullies, hills, lots of sort of varying terrain that would allow them to sort of do this sort of stuff. They're not just walking through the open desert, hoping to surprise enormous units like this. But it means that they don't have a clear run into the city now. Now, with regards to the rest of this, I'm going to move him there because I don't want anyone landing there. I'm going to leave. I'm going to spread these two a little further over this way. And that's it, I think. I don't want to move him there. If I move him there, there's too much open space there. Okay. So it's the US turn again. So now I've got to contend with this, and the reason that I've done that is it now forces a lot of effort into dealing with that unit. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm still in range, so let's see whether I can actually use my artillery there. I can. So I'm going to do that. But will I be able to get that now? It might be a little protected. Well, he's down to 2.1. Two, three, four, five, six, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That was him. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, one of these did. See, this one was able to fire, but he shouldn't have been really, because he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's not in range. I can't move him now, but I can move this guy there and hopefully get him in range. So that's the sort of glitchy thing, and I'm aware of it, but and also fast 1.45. Now, the artillery is a good way of damaging the regular units. So I fired my artillery in those instances. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to move everyone a little further forward here. And I'm going to use my artillery in there, if I can get it in there. That was quite effective. 1, 2, 3, 4 units. And I got 1.9 on the rockets. So those rockets are now down to 2.7, which is nice. Okay, so I've got the continued movement here. I'm spreading that out nicely. Now the thing to bear in mind is that these are actually all targets. So these irregulars can now attack those, and they will be at 5 because they go up to 5 because they're less than 5. So, but that's only a 1-to-1. So it's interesting to see whether or not the threat of the irregulars doing that sort of attack will affect what they do. Similarly over here, I think I'm going to move these units a little further forward. So we're just edging forward. Now here we've used our artillery up. And the question to some extent is, can I get there? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I could possibly surround that unit. That's an awful lot of movement. So I'm not going to do that. I don't want to break my strategy, but what I will do, I think, is commit my helicopters to see what I can do with that, because I think they will damage the irregulars. No. Yep, 0.9, and that was effective. You can see it's got some anti-aircraft air defence, but you know he's at 0.9 now, so he's just lost some of his strength essentially. So again, I'm developing a bit-by-bit approach, forcing the Al-Qaeda player to make moves. And I think that's sort of what I'm trying to convey here to some extent, is that it's not this just wild thing. You know, I could have taken that unit out, but I'm keeping my integrity along here. And one other thing that's worth bearing in mind is that he can't actually attack those units because they're stacked up to 8. He could, in theory, 1, 2, 3. If he could get there, he could possibly do an attack 5-to-1 against my artillery. So it's an opportunity, but it would, to some extent, be suicidal. And I don't think it would be in the spirit of a game to do that. He's just sort of doing things, and the US player hasn't been swayed from their battle plan by the presence of spoiling units of this nature. So, and again, we're still not going to commit our air units because I still don't see an opportunity to do anything. Although the air units could essentially land there and there, for example, but then they'd be committed. It's an awful lot of commitment just to get rid of one unit. Bringing them outside of the city to some extent is beneficial, so we'll see. So it's the Al-Qaeda player again now. And there's no opportunities there, but what they're going to do, see, through desert he can pretty much only move 2, so he could only get to there at best. There's nothing to attack there. He's going to sit there and recover, because then he will recover his depressions. Here, now we can only move 2. So what I'm going to do is move there. Which gives me a little bit of scope to threaten the flank. And you can't get so much around to create a surround and destroy that unit. The rockets okay, and I'm not sure really that I want to. I've moved those, haven't I? I think what I'm going to do here is move there. That gives me an opportunity to almost threaten this unit, but also threatening to move around that artillery, forcing him to do something with that line. I don't really want to move the distribution around here at all. I'm sort of happy with these being reserves to some extent. I'm still aware that he's got air mobile units, so I don't want to give him too many open city hexes to land in. So these people are still doing their job, blocking that middle section. That's a bit open, so I will actually fill that out. But that's that. So it's a game of sort of, not so much cat and mouse, but it's a lot of manoeuvring, preparing for an opportunity. So what I'm going to do is move this artillery into there. A, it protects them, but B, it also puts them legitimately into range of this hex. Okay, not brilliant. Okay, so we're sort of still doing some damage on the units in there. And that 2.3 on that unit was quite nice. One, two, three, four, five, 6. Okay, so it's 0.25, 1.35, 0, 0.7, 1.7. I'm quite happy with the way artillery works, because it's frustrating and keeps a level of attrition, but it's not so overpowering that these units are being decimated by the artillery. It's going to take a long time keeping that up for it to be, you know, effective. With a couple of good rolls, we might be able to sort of push them to the limit where then it becomes, to some extent, expedient to actually, or worthwhile to actually carry out the ground assaults. Obviously, these are the two things that I'm attacking. I've done nothing against that yet. Now down here, manoeuvring against that is sort of, is there an opportunity there? I can move 3 hexes, I think. 1, 2, 3. Or was it 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. To some extent, I think. Yep, I think I can move there. But I've got no movement left. That's interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. 20 seconds left. Okay, that's pretty much it. Come on, move. Alright, you can see what I'm going to do. I'm trying to harass down here. I'm not going to do another round. 3 seconds left. I'll speak to you later. Bye.